The city was a fractured heart, beating in two separate rhythms. Towering walls of stone and fear split it down the middle, casting long shadows over its people. On one side lived Mustufa, a boy with eyes old beyond his years, who had grown up amidst the echoes of division. He saw the barbed wire glinting in the sun, heard the distant shouts of anger, and felt the weight of a world divided.
Baba, why did you do that? Mustafa's voice was filled with innocent curiosity, a child's quest for understanding.
One day, Mustafa joined his father, a doctor, on his rounds. They walked through the streets, past the familiar sights of their divided city. They crossed the checkpoint, tension thick in the air, the weight of suspicion and fear palpable. A young soldier, his face etched with weariness and the burden of his duty, stood guard, eyes scanning for threats. Mustafa watched as his father, with a gentle smile, offered the soldier a piece of baklava, a small gesture of humanity in a place devoid of it. The soldier hesitated, then accepted it with a curt nod, a moment of connection in a sea of division. As they walked away, Mustafa asked his father why he did that. His father's smile was warm, filled with a wisdom that Mustafa was just beginning to understand. "For your long day," his father replied, his voice gentle and kind.
Sometimes, Mustafa, a little kindness is the only bridge we need. In a world torn apart by walls and wire, a simple act of kindness can be the first step towards healing.
The years tumbled by like loose stones down a hillside. At 16, Mustafa was taller, his shoulders broader, but his heart remained the same. The city still bore its scars, the wall a stark reminder of their division. Mustafa, however, refused to let fear take root.
Plant these, let hope grow.
He remembered his father's words, his small acts of compassion. He began to carry seeds with him, sunflower seeds, bright and full of life. He would approach people on his side of the city, their faces etched with worry and distrust. "Plant these," he'd say, pressing the seeds into their hands. "Let hope grow." Not everyone embraced Mustafa's message. In a city where hope was a rare commodity, his words often fell on deaf ears. People were too consumed by their own struggles to notice the quiet boy with a dream. One day, a group of older boys, their eyes hardened by the city's anger, cornered him near the wall. Their faces were twisted with disdain, and their voices dripped with sarcasm and hostility.
"I'm just trying to plant seeds of hope." Mustafa's voice was steady, but there was a tremor of vulnerability in his eyes.
"What are you doing, boy?" one sneered. The question hung in the air, heavy with mockery. Trying to be a hero? Mustafa stood tall, his voice calm. He knew that showing fear would only embolden them. "I'm just trying to plant seeds of hope," he said, holding out a handful of sunflower seeds. Each seed was a symbol of his unwavering belief in a better future. The boys laughed, their shadows falling over him. Their laughter was a cruel reminder of the harsh reality he faced. Mustafa refused to back down. He knew that fear, like a weed, needed to be confronted with even the smallest acts of defiance. His resolve was his shield, and his hope was his weapon. He knelt and began to plant the seeds in the dry earth at the foot of the wall. Each seed he planted was a silent promise to himself and to the world that he would not give up, no matter how daunting the wall of fear seemed. Word spread about the boy who planted sunflowers. Some scoffed, others whispered with cautious hope. Mustafa continued his quiet mission. He started folding paper cranes, each one a delicate symbol of peace. He'd leave them on park benches, tuck them into the hands of statues, even send them floating on paper boats down the river that bisected the city.
Choose hope.
Each crane carried a simple message, written in careful script: choose hope. One day, he found a small origami flower tucked into the fence near the checkpoint. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. It meant someone, somewhere, was listening. The conflict escalated. One morning, Mustafa awoke to the sound of distant shouting.
He rushed to his garden, the one he'd nurtured with care, only to find it trampled, the sunflowers crushed beneath heavy boots.
Despair threatened to engulf him, but then he noticed something.
A small piece of paper weighted down by a stone lay amidst the ruins. He picked it up, his heart pounding.
It was a note written on the back of a military ration pack. "Thank you for the hope," it read, a soldier.
Tears welled up in Mustafa's eyes.
Even in the heart of conflict, kindness had found its way through. The city held its breath. Tensions had reached a boiling point. Mustafa knew he had to do something more than just plant seeds and fold cranes.
An idea began to take root in my mind. I went from house to house, sharing my plan. I spoke to mothers weary of war, to children who had never known peace, to shopkeepers and teachers, their faces etched with worry. My plan was simple yet audacious. A silent march, no slogans, no shouts of anger, only thousands of origami cranes held aloft, their paper wings carrying a message of peace.
On a day that dawned gray and uncertain, they came. Thousands of people, from both sides of the divided city, converged on the bridge that had become a symbol of their separation. They came with their paper cranes, each one a silent prayer for peace.
I stood at the front, my heart pounding, my eyes fixed on the other side of the bridge. As the two crowds met in the middle, a hush fell. The only sound was the flutter of paper wings as the cranes were held high, creating a breathtaking spectacle of white against the somber sky.
Something shifted that day on the bridge. The wall of silence, built over years of resentment and fear, crumbled. The sight of those fragile cranes held by hands young and old touched something deep within the hearts of the city's people.
The soldiers, ordered to stand guard, watched in stunned silence as the crowd, united in their silent plea for peace, began to dismantle the barricades. Brick by brick, the wall began to fall. It was the beginning of a long and arduous process, but the city had taken its first, tentative steps towards healing. The seeds of hope that I had planted had finally begun to blossom.
Years later, the city was no longer a fractured heart. It had transformed into a vibrant community, a testament to resilience and unity. The once desolate streets were now bustling with life, filled with the sounds of joy and harmony. The walls were gone, replaced by parks and playgrounds filled with laughter. Children ran freely, their giggles echoing through the air, a stark contrast to the silence that once prevailed. Mustufa, his hair now streaked with silver, became a teacher. He dedicated his life to nurturing young minds, instilling in them the values of compassion and understanding. He stood in front of a classroom, a familiar warmth in his eyes. His presence was a beacon of hope, a reminder of the power of education and the impact one person can have on a community.
Children, their faces bright with curiosity, listened intently as I spoke of peace, of kindness, of the power of small acts to change the world. They were eager to learn, their eyes wide with wonder and hope. I took out a worn leather pouch. It was a simple object, yet it held profound significance, a symbol of the legacy passed down through generations. Inside, nestled amongst the sunflower seeds and paper cranes, was a stethoscope, my father's stethoscope. It was a reminder of his dedication to healing and the lessons he imparted. "Remember," I said, my voice filled with emotion, "kindness is the greatest healer of all." These words resonated deeply, planting seeds of empathy and compassion in the hearts of the young listeners.
Outside the window, bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun, a field of sunflowers swayed gently in the breeze. It was a scene of serene beauty, a perfect ending to a day filled with learning and growth. The sunflowers, standing tall and proud, symbolized the enduring spirit of the community and the everlasting impact of a teacher's legacy.